Johnson. So Johnson was Kennedy's vice president, and he became president when Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. His dream was to be president, so this was like, yes, dream come true. So what did Johnson do? He escalated. He got more involved, more bomb raids, more search and destroy missions, and he sent more troops. In 1964, he won the presidency for himself by promising not to send troops. And he also increased involvement. George Ball was the Secretary of State, and he did not want to be aggressive. He warned that an increase in escalation would increase the anger of the Vietnamese, and plus that's kind of what the French did. How'd that work for them? Not too well. But, if you remember the battle in the Valley of Dien Bien Phu, it wasn't very good. So, very few people agreed with him, and he was laughed at. And on August 2nd of 1964, there was the Gulf of Tonkin Revolution in North Vietnam. The Maddox, which was a U.S. ship, claimed to have been attacked by North Vietnam vessels, and so they attacked back and destroyed all three with little to no damage to the Maddox. On August 3rd, the next day, they claimed that there was a second attack. This never actually happened. It was actually a weather anomaly, a storm. And 22 torpedoes showed up on the radar, and there were no torpedoes at all. It was just the storm messing with the radar. Johnson went on national television and said that South Vietnam was facing the terror of the Viet Cong, and that now the U.S. was facing it too. Oh no! And he claimed that he wouldn't escalate. He told Congress to take all measures to protect the U.S. security and to repel an attack, which is essentially escalation. He was lying on TV. And there was a unanimous yes in the House with 2 dissenting votes in the Senate. He knew that it was sketchy, as he knew that there wasn't an attack, but it was his opportunity to escalate, which is what he wanted to do. He did not want to be ruined by the fall of Vietnam the way Truman was by the fall of China, and so he was actually too aggressive. Whereas when Truman let China fall, everyone was like, what the heck? Why didn't you do something about this? You could have stopped this, when really there wasn't much he could do. But anyway, in November of 1964, they implemented Operation Rolling Thunder. It's basically the bombing of territories in North Vietnam, and they wanted to impress North Vietnam with the U.S. technology, and so that they could prevent future attacks. So they were all like, North Vietnam, look at us, look at how awesome our new snazzy technology is. Bet you don't have this. Yeah, that's right. Back down. It didn't really work. Yeah. In February of 1965, the Viet Cong retaliated to Operation Rolling Thunder, and they attacked the military base. They killed 9 people and injured 100, so Johnson used this to justify another bombing. How dare you retaliate against us? Grrr. In March, we sent 2 Marine battalions. There were 2 Marine battalions in Vietnam. And by the end of 1965, there were 184,000 soldiers in Vietnam and 600 casualties. George Ball said that you would need more than 500,000 soldiers, and that still might not be enough, and again, he was laughed at. But between 1965 and 1973, there were 6.1 million tons of explosives dropped. There were 2.5 million tons total dropped during World War II. Yeah. Bombings deterred people from supporting the U.S. because bombs don't discriminate. So just because you want to kill the Viet Minh in South Vietnam, everyone else around will also be killed. So yeah, killing people doesn't make people like you. No. Yeah. So, in December of 1967, General William Westmoreland gave a rosy outlook of the war in the media. He said that Vietnam was increasing in desperation and struggle, and that the enemy was near defeat. We had almost won. Yeah. In 1968, there were 536,000 soldiers and 30,610 casualties. And on January 30th of 1968, remember that General William Westmoreland had just announced this in December of 1967, and on January 30th of 1968 was the Tet Offensive, which Tet is the Vietnamese New Year, and so we assumed that they wouldn't be attacking. But the North Vietnamese launched a surprise attack on South Vietnam, and they hit Saigon, which was the capital, and they took control of the U.S. Embassy there. The media cameras were there to see it. And so this led to the credibility gap, which is essentially what's said versus what's actually seen and what's going on. Walter Cronkite, who was the news anchor for CBS, began questioning what was really going on in Vietnam. And this is a pretty major thing, since back then there weren't very many options to get your news. So when one of the major ones are questioning the government, that leads to some problems. On March 31st of 1968, Johnson announced on national television that he would stop the bombing and start negotiating peace, and that he wouldn't seek the presidency and wouldn't accept it if he was put on the ballot. So that's pretty major, since it was his dream to be president, and now he's saying he won't even accept it if he's elected. The Democrats began panicking because they lost Johnson, and McCarthy wasn't very popular, so they kind of were losing hope of winning the election. And 1968 was an election year. Robert Kennedy, who was President Kennedy's brother, aligned himself with the peace movement, and this is a disassociation from his brother. He said that he'd make decisions based on what was right, and so he was very popular with the youth. The youth were very much against the Vietnam War because they were the ones being sent over, and they didn't really want to die. Would you like it if someone was sending off to war? That's right, I didn't think so. So, where was I? Oh, so he won the Democratic primary in California, but then he was assassinated. So the Democrats were finally having hope that, hey, we've got this popular guy and he will probably win the election. We might have hope. Yes! Oh, wait, he's dead. Yeah. In the summer of 1968, the Democratic National Convention was held in Chicago. Richard Daley, who was the conservative mayor, was very adamant that Chicago wouldn't be a protest place, and he had police guard the area. Protesters came anyway, and they elected a pig outside of the convention and dressed it up. This actually made some news for a little while, because it was so stagnant and boring inside. They had no plan and no candidate. Finally, they elected Hubert Humphrey, who was Johnson's vice president, and he didn't get much confidence. I mean, his name is Hubert Humphrey. It just isn't a very strong-sounding person. Eugene McCarthy was Johnson's rival. He was pro-peace, and he got a lot of votes in the primaries. George Wallace, who was the governor of Alabama, was Southern, so he got a lot of votes to become president, and he was opposed to racial integration. He ran as a Dixiecrat. So he ran as an independent. He didn't win, but he actually got 13.5% of the popular vote, which he stole from Nixon. Johnson's focuses included the Great Society, which was an attempt to revitalize cities after World War II, which was the war on poverty. And secondly, he wanted to contain communism in Vietnam.